Donald Trump, he might just win this thing. Really and truly, guys. I mean, this is amazing. These poll numbers keep coming in, one after another, showing how much he's up. This is according to Axios. Look at this. So this is an interesting poll because it shows you that actually the Democrats are doing okay. By the way, we have to be concerned about this because we don't want to lose the Senate. You don't want to lose the House, right? You want Donald Trump to go in and have the wind at his back, so to speak, which means you got to get the House, you got to get the Senate. So this is not necessarily a good thing, but it shows you how bad a candidate Joe Biden is because the Democrats are actually up when you look at each of these individual races on the Senate level, right? In Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And then when you look at the presidential race, what do you see? Donald Trump up by 4.5% there in Arizona over Joe Biden. And then up 0.4%. That's so interesting in Michigan. Nevada up 7 points. Wow. Pennsylvania up 2.5 and barely, tied in Wisconsin. So this is fast. These are big time battleground states, ladies and gentlemen. No one thought that Donald Trump was going to win these back in 2020. Nobody would have thought that. And yet here we are. Today, in this moment, I want to go to a deep dive on some of these polls. We can look at, for example, Emerson College's polls, which show us what's going on there in the Midwest and in these battleground states. Arizona, Trump up 4. Georgia, Trump up 4. Nevada, Trump up 3. Wisconsin, Trump up 3. Again, all according to the very latest polling coming out of Emerson College just last week. Pennsylvania, Trump up 2. Michigan, Trump up 1. Minnesota, tied. Wow. Just to give you some context around this, okay? It's early in the game. And hey, anything can happen in politics. We know that, right? Because early in the game, around this very time in the 2016 cycle, you want to know where Donald Trump was vis-a-vis Hillary Clinton? 38.9% to 44.8%. And then what do you know? He just kept rising and rising and rising and rising. Now, one of the reasons for that, and one of the reasons why we're not even seeing stronger polling coming out of the Midwest, is because Donald Trump doesn't poll so well. Surprise, surprise, right? Earth-shattering news. He doesn't poll that well because, it's Trump. And people are actually afraid to admit they're voting for Trump. It's this touchy thing. I mean, when Biden tells you he's so evil and everybody on Morning Joe and CNN, I can't believe he's doing this debate on CNN. We're going to talk about that too. Everyone out there is, it's evil. MAGA is bad. They're writing off half the country. So if you admit that, maybe you are actually somebody who voted for Trump in the past or are going to vote for him now, then you're part of the problem, right? You're the bad individual. You are the evil person that is supporting MAGA. And so you're naturally afraid to say it. I mean, I see it over and over and over again. People are afraid to admit, I'm going to vote for Trump. I get it all the time. People come up to me and it's like, they tell me, Trish, I love your show. I listen to your show every day. I watch your show every day. I love it. And they're always like, and I'm voting for Trump. But they're afraid to say it. Granted, I live in the Northeast and, it is what it is here. I know Drew has a different experience living in Florida where you can get away with a little bit more. But I'm telling you, the fact that people feel ashamed, that in and of itself is kind of a problem, right? But to the benefit of Trump, it shows that these polls are probably not fully accurate. So going back to them, Drew, if we can look at Emerson College again, I mean, if you look at him up so significantly in so many of these states, Arizona up 4, Georgia up 4, Nevada up 3, Wisconsin up 3. I mean, think about that. So if it is not totally correct, and guess what? He could be even higher in Pennsylvania. He could be even higher in Michigan. He could be higher in Minnesota. Really and truly, guys, because nobody's willing to say what they really think. Meanwhile, you don't have a ton of enthusiasm, right? There's not a lot of enthusiasm for the guy who has driven up prices to levels that we haven't really ever seen. I mean, you've got inflation skyrocketing. To get any kind of similar growth in inflation, you're going to go all the way back to the Jimmy Carter years. So we got problems, right? When it comes to inflation, it's out of control. And so you don't have a lot of enthusiasm for the candidate, for the Democrat candidate, because people naturally blame him. They blame, as they should, Joe Biden. I mean, I'd say that some blame could go around. Jerome Powell, I'm looking at you. But as a result of this, his base is not coming out for him, whether it be blacks or whether it be women. The New York Times had a big article on this about how women are just not coming out as anticipated. Here's the headline: Biden's lead with women is smaller than Trump's with men. A warning for Democrats. His current standing among women is the weakest lead a Democrat has had since 2004. A key factor in how tight this race is. You know why? Because women are not stupid. Women are the ones that are effectively the CFOs of their family. They're the ones at the grocery counter having to pay for a 30% increase in grocery costs. They know what it takes to run a household. They know when you got to buy new sneakers every few months for the kids, and they know how much more everything costs, and they know that they don't have as much money coming in because jobs are not correspondingly increasing wages enough to keep up with all this inflation. It's a huge problem. I mean, it's actually one of the reasons why, quick shout out for one of our wonderful sponsors here on the program, American Heart for Gold, why I say, you know what, you got to diversify your portfolio. You got to think about what actually is going to help you preserve the value of your dollars in the future. One way to help preserve that is diversifying into gold. I like gold a lot. And by the way, I've been completely right on this. I'm not, I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm 1,000% right all the time, although I usually am. Anyway, just saying, I usually am. Anyway, one of the things that I have been very right about is gold. And look, I think it's fairly priced right now, but I think that basically what you're looking at is concern for the future, because none of this spending is going to change overnight. I mean, 34 trillion and counting. And you're going to find that just paying off the interest on the debt is going to eat up a bigger and bigger chunk. So this is not a good scenario for the US, and it's just the reality of where we are. On top of that, you have countries all around the world saying, well, look what the US did to Russia. I don't really like that. I mean, they're not even technically at war with Russia, and yet they just basically wiped out Russia. Any kind of debt that they held got wiped out. They're not using rubles anymore. And so people are like, hey, okay. So all around the world, you have countries increasingly looking to diversify their own holdings into gold. Central banks are buying gold. So all of this is contributing to the increase in gold prices. I would say take a look at this. Silver is actually on the upswing as well. And if you text my name, Trish, Trish, to 65532, again, text Trish to 65532, you can get up to $15,000 in free silver. This is a special offer for viewers of the Trish Regan Show only. Call 1-844-495-1115. Again, up to $15,000 in free silver. And guess what else? You can also go to Trish Loves Gold. You can't forget that. TrishLovesGold.com. I'm going to put the URL as well in the show notes for you. So TrishLovesGold.com, or text Trish to 65532. But it's quite obvious, what this inflation is here, and it's not going away. So we have a real problem. I think any way you slice it, Donald Trump really stands to win this election. I mean, unless something really terrible happens, like, I don't know, there's just a disaster of a debate. I look at this debate that's happening on Thursday at CNN, and I am quite hesitant. I worry that CNN is CNN. And it didn't get that moniker Communist News Network for nothing, right? They don't like Donald Trump over at CNN. And the guy who's going to be moderating this whole thing with his sidekick, Dana Bash, his name is Jake Tapper, and he has said over the years how much he really doesn't like Donald Trump. In fact, guys, do you remember just several months ago, maybe a little longer than that ago, they decided to do a town hall on CNN with Donald Trump. And the anchors went bonkers. It was like a complete mutiny at CNN. They wound up getting their boss fired because how dare the boss suggest a town hall with Donald Trump? That pariah, that disgusting person that is Donald Trump. Oh my God, they couldn't believe it. And they drove this poor guy right out of town. He was actually trying to help them. I think they got the best ratings they've ever gotten. They've just been sinking like a brick ever since. So I need you to remember that. Because going into Thursday, I feel very strongly that this is a little bit of a setup. I mean, they're going to control the microphones, and that's going to come with baggage. and they're going to control the questions. I've moderated 2 debates myself. I know how this works. Unfortunately, you get a lot of people, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and they're all looking at these questions over and over and over again. And what they want to do is trip up Donald Trump. And so Jake Tapper, with his very nasal, I'm sorry I pick on people's voices, but I guess it's my background in classical music and I have a very sensitive ear. For whatever reason, every man that came out of ABC News, that all they wound up on MSNBC and mostly on CNN, they all sound very Kermit-like, including poor Jake Tapper. Terrible, terrible voice. Anyway, I don't believe that Jake can really be neutral in any of this. I want you to hear him if you can stand to listen. I know it's nails on the chalkboard, but here he is with Anderson Cooper.
And it was an interesting night. Mr. Trump's first lie was told just seconds into the night with his false familiar claim that the 2020 election was, quote, a rigged election. And the falsehoods kept coming fast and furious about the January 6th insurrection, about the threat to Vice President Pence, about Pence's ability to overturn the election, about COVID, about the economy, and more. He called a black law enforcement officer a thug. He said people here in Washington, D.C. at Chinatown don't speak English. He attacked Caitlyn as a nasty woman because she was...
Can we just plug his nose? Someone needs to get him some voice lessons. Him and Ron DeSantis. Please, please, please. Anyway, we're going to have to listen to him on Thursday night. Well, you won't. I will. This is what I do for you. This is a labor of love. I'm not kidding. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you share. Make a comment. Join our chat. I see so many of you. Welcome back. Welcome back on this Monday. But yeah, Jake Tapper has... He has the job of trying to pretend like he's not biased, but he's very, very biased. And we've seen it over and over again. And the same with his sidekick. So you're going to have 2 very biased individuals in the seat. And then you get the network bias pouring in. Then, they get the former New York Times guy that's running their newsroom, for goodness sakes. And everybody has their book, so to speak, as we'd say in the market, right? Well, take a look at this. This is unbelievable to me. Today, moments ago, one of the press people for Donald Trump goes on CNN. You know what? Kudos to her. Kudos to her. She's actually trying to diversify and not just go on the conservative network. She's right out there on CNN. And she tries to make the point that I just did about Jake being a bit biased, and we should understand that going into Thursday night. Whoa! The anchor won't even, the poor anchor who looks like she just rolled out of bed, won't even let her talk. Take a peek.
So he's basically saying there, well, will I let Joe Biden win? It does seem as though many Republicans have set the bar very low in terms of arguing that Joe Biden is basically senile. Now you have people like Doug Burgum coming out and saying, well, President Biden's very accomplished, trying to set expectations in a different place. What do you expect from Joe Biden?
Well, first of all, it takes someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently frequently likened President Trump to Adolf Hitler.
Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Caroline, thank you very much for your time. You are welcome to come back at any point. She is welcome to come back and speak about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will have equal time to Joe Biden when they both join us now at later this week in Atlanta for this debate. Arthur.
I can't quite breathe because I'm so upset that someone dared to insult my colleague, Jake Tapper, the godly Jake Tapper, who can't get his voice out of his nose. Oh, my Lord. You know what, Caroline Levitt, again, kudos to you, girl, because, I'd have no interest in going on that show ever. These people they're not fair. Kudos to Trump. Listen, I wish in some ways he wasn't doing that, but I think he felt like he needed to, he had to. And so here he is, and he's going on the likes of CNN, where he is not going to get a fair shake because, yes, to Caroline's point, the anchors are incredibly biased. They've made it, I will say this in Fox's defense for one moment. I know you guys don't love Brett and Martha, but they serve a purpose, and they're actually not allowed to speak out as much as other people like a Hannity might speak out. They're actually really, really specific about that. They play a certain role, and the network requires that they try to live within the parameters of that. On CNN, like, they don't even try. Like, they don't even, like, it's like the same at MSNBC. They're all super lefty and make it clear how much they hate Trump over and over and over again. And then somehow now they're moderating the debate. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a smart guy. He'll probably be able to handle it fine. But what do you do when they turn off your mic? I mean, that's my concern. And they only open it for Biden. They said they're only going to give out 1 bottle of water. You guys are like, hey, I hope he checks that water. Bring your own water, Trump, right? That's kind of funny. And they're going to stand at a table, I guess. It'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be one-sided. I think I'll be amazed if Biden can like pull it together. I do think that they're going to give him his favorite issues. And you saw what I just showed you about how women not being mobilized to come out and vote against Trump and for Biden because, you know, they're looking at their grocery bills. Well, they're trying to boil this down to one issue and one issue only. And they think that somehow they're going to be able to motivate women to come out if they focus on abortion. But I got news for them. Been there, done that. It's been kicked back to the states. You go focus on those governor races and anybody that's holding a state office, okay? Because that has nothing to do with the president at this point. Absolutely nothing. Roe v. Wade was kicked back to the states. So you're trying to relive history. It's really bizarre. I mean, that's your issue for the presidential race? I'm sorry, I don't think so. I mean, I go back to those polls from Axios, and it makes sense to me now. Okay, so maybe you've got Democrats up in some of the local races, even the Senate races. But when it comes to the presidential race, everybody knows now the president's going to have nothing to do with that. That's done, okay? Done. We've moved on. His other big issue that he wants to focus on apparently is the economy, which just cracks me up because I'm like, you know what? You are your own worst enemy, Joe Biden. You are your own worst enemy because Donald Trump can basically have you as a little snack for lunch on something like that. Just a little snack. You know, and yeah, I look at this. So I want to show you this clip from, it was actually played on Fox, one of the Biden-Harris campaign chair people trying to say somehow that not having an audience is better for the American people. Not having an audience? Oh, because they just don't want Biden to get booed. I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want Biden to get distracted. You know how he keeps looking off into the big crowd, all dazed and confused, has no clue what's going on because there's so many people. That's what they're trying to avoid. Listen to this woman.
Not having an audience, not having distractions, not having to worry about COVID. I think all of those things are better for the American people, and Joe Biden's going to have a great debate.
Yeah. Better for the American people. I'm sorry. You know what? It's over before it started. Because I don't think anybody believes that Donald Trump is going to get a fair debate. Because you got a couple anchors that have an enormous bias. An enormous bias. And they're part of the problem. They're part of the system and they're part of the problem. So we'll see. You know what? I'll keep an open mind. I'll watch it. I'll pick the best clips and we'll talk about them on Friday. I promise. But I don't have high expectations for any of it, really.